Today, we're going to talk about corruption, but probably not in the way you're used to. See, this isn't a political discussion. This is more of a heart discussion. We're going to dive into where corruption really begins, and more importantly, how we can be the ones to finally put an end to it.
This quote just hits it right on the head, doesn't it? It frames the whole problem so perfectly. This is so much bigger than just some scandal you read about in the news. We're talking about the very fabric of our society and the future we're leaving behind. It's about futures that are stolen before they even have a chance to start.
So that's the big question, right? If it's not just happening in the halls of power, where does a problem this big actually get its start? It's easy to point fingers at the people at the top, but what if the real source is much, much closer to home?
And there's the answer. And honestly, it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow. The idea here is that corruption isn't born in some corporate boardroom or a government office. No, it's nurtured in the small, everyday choices we make, and it often gets its start right inside our own homes.
So let's really dig into what we're talking about here. Because if you want to solve a problem that runs this deep, you have to understand its roots.
At its most basic, this is it. Simple, right? Using your position or an opportunity to get something that isn't yours. But the key phrase here, the part that really matters, is a lack of integrity. It's less about the specific act and way more about the character, or lack of character, behind that act.
The source material uses this fantastic analogy. Think of corruption like a virus. It doesn't just show up one day as a full-blown pandemic. It starts with these tiny, almost invisible transmissions. A small lie here, a little rule bent there, and they just multiply and multiply until the entire system is sick.
So how does this virus actually spread? Let's take a look at the places we might not even notice it, hiding in plain sight in our day-to-day lives.
It starts so young. Picture this. A student copies an answer on a test, but instead of being told it's wrong, they get praised for their Diskarte, for being clever or resourceful. That's an incredibly powerful lesson. The takeaway for that child isn't about math or history. It's that gaming the system is how you get ahead.
And then, of course, that same kid grows up and gets a job. Now, that clever Diskarte turns into padding expense reports or a manager asking for a little something extra under the table. And the justification? Oh, it's those famous last words. Everybody does it anyway. It's a way of making your own bad choices feel okay because you think you're just part of a crowd.
Now this slide, wow, this really breaks down the core issue. It's about the messages we're sending. When we tell our kids, don't get caught, we're basically saying that cheating itself is fine, just be smart about it. But when we say, don't cheat, we're teaching them about right and wrong, about character. One is about managing your image, the other is about building your integrity.
And all these little things, they add up to something massive. According to estimates for the Philippines, a jaw-dropping 20% of the entire national budget is lost to corruption every single year. Let that sink in. That's 1 out of every 5 pesos, meant for all of us, just gone.
And please, don't think of this as just a number. This has a real, tangible, and often heartbreaking human cost. It's the reason a bridge built with cheap materials collapses. It's why the local health clinic is always out of stock of basic medicine, meaning a sick child might not make it. This is what corruption actually looks like on the ground.
So, seeing the cost, you have to ask why. Why does it keep spreading? What are the conditions that let this virus not just survive, but thrive?
Well, the source points to 4 key ingredients that create the perfect breeding ground. It starts with good old-fashioned greed and a sense of entitlement. Then you mix in a culture that tolerates it, where we might even laugh at jokes about it. Add to that a weak foundation of values at home and in school, and top it all off with a serious lack of accountability. And boom, you've got a system where people think they can get away with just about anything.
This quote just stops you in your tracks. The biggest tragedy isn't that corruption happens. It's that we can become so used to it, so numb, that it becomes routine. When we start to accept wrongdoing as just the way things are, we lose a fundamental piece of who we are.
Okay, so that was the diagnosis. It's heavy stuff, but we can't end there. Now let's talk about the cure. The source gives us a hopeful and, most importantly, an actionable plan for building integrity.
Here they are, 5 incredibly powerful steps. And notice something, none of these require passing a new law or staging a massive protest. Every single one of them is something that can begin with us in our own lives today. From teaching integrity early to simply having the courage to do the right thing when it's hard.
And this
This right here is the secret sauce. You can lecture your kids about honesty until you're blue in the face, but it means absolutely nothing if they see you lie to get out of a speeding ticket. Children are sponges. They don't just listen to what we say, they copy what we do. Our actions are the only lesson that truly sticks.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most powerful section. What is the ultimate weapon in this fight against corruption? The source shares this unbelievable story about a teacher who catches her own son cheating on a test. And instead of covering for him, she lets him fail. She lets him face the consequences. Why? Because she chose to teach him a lesson about character that was worth so much more than any test score. Now that is integrity in action.
And this really is the whole point. We need laws, we need enforcement, of course. But the real battle isn't won in courtrooms. The virus isn't killed there. It's killed at the source. It's won or lost in the values we build in our families and our living rooms.
And that leads to this direct challenge for every single one of us listening. This isn't about changing the whole world by tomorrow. It's about being the one person who decides to make a different choice. The one citizen who refuses to cheat. The one employee who won't lie. The one parent who makes integrity their family's highest value. And this is the ultimate takeaway. More powerful than any law passed by any government, more powerful than any task force, is the simple, quiet, consistent example we set for the next generation. That is the law that will truly write our future.
So we'll end on this question. This isn't about pointing fingers outward anymore. It's about looking inward. The change starts with a personal decision, a choice that's made in the quiet of our own conscience. The only real question left is, are you ready to begin?